Hi, and welcome to tonight's edition of This Week in East Brunswick. This week we'll cover Ed Koch's recent appearance in town and a conference of the New Jersey Coalition on Women and Disabilities. Doug Halverson presents the concluding chapter of our series Reading Facts and Fictions, and Peggy Ballister-House returns with suggestions for rotating crops in your home garden. All this and more, but first a look at programming next week on Channel 8. The library will be closed Monday and there will be no cablecast in observance of Memorial Day. Tuesday night at 7:30, Paul Hansen investigates securities fraud on You and Your Money. At 8, John Runyon speaks with Consumer Affairs Director Adrian Eisner on business bylines. The Norculic demonstrates resistance exercise Wednesday afternoon at 2:30 on Look Great, Feel Great. And at 3, children's librarian Janet Rosalenko shares stories about pets with 4-year-olds on Stories from the Library. At 3:30, Vic Romatowski hosts a Channel 8 special edition on Lyme disease. Wednesday evening at 7:30, Spotlight on Education focuses on English classes at the high school. And at 8, Stuart Davis takes a look at local efforts to preserve our environment on 18. We'll return Thursday night at 7 and 8 with a new edition of This Week in East Brunswick. And at 7:30 Thursday night, menopausal problems are discussed on Let's Talk Health. Check the Channel 8 Community Bulletin Board for Saturday's schedule of shows run during the week.
Over 800 people attended a community rally last week at the East Brunswick Jewish Center. Operation Exodus is a program that supports and enables Jews to leave the Soviet Union for a life of freedom in Israel or the United States. Operation Exodus is an important program to the Jewish community in Middlesex County and in the state, but the main attraction at last week's rally was the guest speaker. Former Mayor of New York City, Ed Koch, drew the unexpectedly large crowd. He was able to provide his unique insight into the current situation that exists in the Soviet Union.
I hope 1 million come in this year because there is constant pressure, not only by the Arabs, but by other world leaders as well, to reduce or eliminate the exodus from the Soviet Union. And Jews don't have the time to test whether or not Gorbachev has the courage and the will to withstand that pressure.
At a press conference before the public rally, Rabbi Bennett Miller explained what our community can do about anti-Semitism.
I think there are a number of things that we can do. First of all, we should not simply look away or hide under the sheets. That time has long passed. If there is an anti-Semite, we need to let him know that he's an anti-Semite. We may not be able to change his views, but at least we know who we're talking to and what he is. If he suggests doing something that is going to be injurious to us, he needs to know that we're not prepared to sit for that and just accept that. And beyond that, we need to continue to educate the community, not only in terms of anti-Semitism, but also about racism, so that wherever we can find people who are of a similar mind, to say we're not going to tolerate that kind of behavior in our community, that's what we need to do and join forces.
Mayor Koch spoke about the importance of Operation Exodus.
No Jew who has the courage to leave, it takes courage, is denied that opportunity because the funding isn't available. And Israel cannot do it alone. It costs $1,200 for every flight for every Jew. And when they get to Israel, it takes about $18,000 to keep a family of 4 on the average, with groceries and whatever else is required for 6 months while they acclimate and learn the language and get jobs. Israel cannot do it alone. The cost, ultimately, because they believe that more than 1 million Jews will ultimately leave the Soviet Union. And they think it will happen within 3 years. And it will cost billions. My fear is that if we simply wait for 3 years, that they won't all get out.
Operation Exodus was launched by the American Jewish community with a commitment to raise $420 million over the next 3 years for Soviet Jewish resettlement in Israel. The goal of the campaign in Middlesex County is to raise $2.2 million. Residents and supporters at the community rally in East Brunswick helped to bring that total so far to $1,050,000.
Hi, I'm Karen Bourque, Manager of Recreation for East Brunswick Township, and I'd like to share with you some information about East Brunswick's Memorial Day weekend. On Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the community beach will be open free of charge for use and enjoyment. On Saturday also, there will be a baseball festival that will take place at East Brunswick Baseball Managers Association Fields on Dunham's Corner Road near Church Lane. And on Sunday, I know you've all heard about the Memorial Day Parade, but I want you to listen really closely. The parade starts at 1 p.m. and it will kick off from East Brunswick's Cranberry Road Fairgrounds, right across the street from the Chateau. It will then proceed down Fern Road to Dunham's Corner, and then down Dunham's Corner Road to Riders Lane, and then to Civic Center. At approximately 3 p.m., there will be a service for the veterans, a ceremony to honor the veterans who have died in the various wars that our country has fought. So plan your day, enjoy the time, have it be on us. It'll be a great weekend in East Brunswick. Have fun. I'll see you there. Come say hi to me at the ceremony around 3 o'clock. See ya.
Disabled people oftentimes have difficulty with everyday life in a society of able-bodied people. What is generally not known, however, is that disabled women face even more barriers than disabled men. The New Jersey Coalition on Women and Disabilities held a conference entitled Controlling Your Future, Maximizing Options into the 90s. Disabled women from several counties participated in events held at the East Brunswick Votech High School. The conference included keynote speaker Carol Ann Robertson.
I'm happy to say that today it's very different. Disabled women are having children. Many are adopting children. And so we see the beginning of an awareness, even in terms of some things that we might see on television, some commercials, for instance, or some programs where we are seeing women with disabilities who are participating in all of the roles that women participate in.
Workshops were held on parenting, empowerment, addictions, and sexuality.
But it's critical to how society sees us. I think it's interesting, for those of you who are moviegoers, that disabled people are starting to be in the movies. But if you notice, I mean, it's disabled men. When you see that the Academy Award nominations for this year, 2 of the movies had disabled men in them. Born on the 4th of July and My Left Foot, about Christy Brown. And I hope that most of you have been able to see My Left Foot, because it does kind of speak for the first time sort of openly about Christy Brown's sexual frustrations and his anger about it and what he does about that. And the movie ends, which is typical to disabled men, really, is that they marry an able-bodied woman.
Conference coordinator Debbie Schilling talked about the conference.
With our theme being empowerment, the tools provided to women to have them reach their optimal potential, we have selected issues that are not generic to specific type disabilities, but to all women. We have topics such as sexuality, which is a really vitally important issue to address, tools for independence, advocacy, parenting, addiction, domestic violence, and some workshops on employment ideas.
I'm Peggy Ballister-Howells, and we're here in the garden again on this absolutely wonderful day.
It's time to get your warm weather crops in the ground, and right here I have a group of related plants. You may not think that they're related, but we have tomatoes and peppers and eggplants. Another close relative of theirs is the potato, and they're all in the solanaceous family. Now what that means to you as a gardener is that they can be planted together, and from year to year they should be rotated together. You wouldn't want to plant peppers this year in a bed that had tomatoes last year, and that's because they get the same insects and the same diseases. And it's a very good precaution to rotate your crops to keep that to a minimum. Now in this bed right here, this has already been thoroughly prepared. We've added a significant amount of compost, fertilizer, and lime to make sure that the pH is right, and we have raised it up to the height of these railroad ties. Now the advantage of making a raised bed is that the soil is well prepared for a bigger depth, and that way the roots can penetrate down instead of spreading out sideways. Now in a small area, that's very important because that allows you to plant a little bit closer together and not sacrifice on production. Now the very first ones that I'm going to put in the garden here are these peppers, and these are a hybrid variety of pepper, and they should do very well. They do like warm weather, and they do best when you don't have any frost, because they can't take a frost, so they shouldn't really be put in the ground until the very end of May. So we're going to put them here. I prefer to plant in a staggered row, and I'm also going to leave this corner without a pepper plant in it, and that's because in that spot I'm going to put some flowers. I always think it's an attractive way of putting a vegetable garden in to mix your flowers and your vegetables together. It makes for a very pretty finished look. Okay. I also like to use a staggered row, and that gives each plant a little bit more room. Now with tomatoes, you can plant them very deep because the stem will generate roots. Don't try that with your peppers though. Okay, we'll plant this in the ground right here. Pack the soil around it. When all of them are planted, we should give them a good drink, and it's really best to do this transplanting in the morning or evening rather than doing it during the hot midday sun. They always take the transplanting a little better. And before you know it, we're going to have peppers and sausage for dinner. We'll see you here in my backyard next week.
Dr. Kling, thanks for joining us in this, our fifth and final in the series on reading. In this segment, we'd like to look at a topic that has wide public use, but I guess not much public clarity. Dyslexia, what is it? What does it mean?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Doug, because it's a word that's been around since 1896 when an English physician noted it in one of his patients. And what he noted is that this adult person couldn't read and got his symbols all twisted up, reversals, that kind of stuff. And it's been around since then, and it actually means non-reader, but after you say that or classify somebody like that, what do you do with it? In fact, there were two national commissions, one in the United States in '69 and one in England in the early '70s, which concluded that the term has so many different meanings or misuses that it ought to be thrown out of the English language. In fact, the latest count is that it has about 200 different connotations. So just using the word dyslexia doesn't tell us much. In fact, it confuses us a lot. But if we accept somebody's idea of dyslexia, and if that is somebody who twists words around, reads backwards and things like that, that's a common phenomena among first and second graders. And by the second or third grade, it tends to sort of disappear or take care of itself.
Let me highlight that. Some of the so-called errors then in reading are really developmentally appropriate and will be outgrown?
Yes, or taught through. I prefer the word taught because most of what we are as readers and learners is learned. If I were pressed, I would say that 90 or 95% of what reading is or is known is learned. And people who are not reading because they are dyslexic. It's because they haven't been taught how to read. There's more than one way to skin a reading cat. And that, I think, is the more viable way. That is to try to find out ways of teaching these youngsters and or adults who are having problems. And most of it is teachable.
Let me push that a bit farther. A child or an adult, for that matter, who has been identified or labeled as being dyslexic, that's really not a hopeless situation. There is some ground for hope then.
No, in fact, when people do come to me about this and say, well, let's see what's going on here, I take nothing for granted, and I would like to see just what the kind of reading performance this kid or adult demonstrates. And usually it's on a continuum, and it's explainable and more useful to see what the strengths and weaknesses of that person is, and to address those concerns that way, and that's more hopeful and useful, because I've not found in my experience with about 5,000 kids and or adults from 2 to 86 years of age any true blue dyslexic that I couldn't explain alternately by something that could be taught or that was learned somewhere along the line or not learned.
Well, is there really then any utility or any value in even using the word dyslexic or dyslexia?
Absolutely not. In fact, I've staked my professional life in the courtroom on that very basis. And those who are pushing for that, I think, are being simple-minded and trying to explain a lot of what's wrong with reading on one kind of thought, that it's a single kind of entity and that it's genetic or that it's something that is all-inclusive, when in fact we can, once we don't accept that, we are far better off by looking at the actual reading activities and strengths and weaknesses than trying to explain it as a single problem.
Dr. Kling, thank you for leading us through this discussion of dyslexia, in our fifth in the 5-part series that we've done together on reading.
Hello, I'm Dr. Tom Pacone, and my partner Dr. John Reichert of the Middlesex County Chiropractic Center, serving the East Brunswick community for over 18 years. Today we're going to demonstrate some common spring and summertime sports injuries, methods to prevent and to treat them should they occur. But first we're going to show her some methods to stretch the upper back and the leg muscles. First, Dr. Reichert is going to demonstrate some side-to-side bending movements, which make a nice longitudinal stretch of all of the spinal and the leg and upper torso muscles. These are done very slowly and very deliberately, and just held for a count of 5 seconds on each side. The next one we're going to show is a method to stretch the hamstring muscles. Dr. Reichert is going to push against me as if I were a wall or an immovable object. He leaves his heel flat on the ground, and he's just going to lunge forward with his bent knee so that his calf muscles and his hamstring muscles get an adequate stretch. The next exercise we're going to show is when Dr. Reichert pulls backward on his instep of his foot, keeping his knee close to the other knee, and this is designed to stretch the quadricep muscles. These are the front of the thigh muscles. Very important. The next one we're going to show, on your stomach please, Dr. Reichert, on all fours, we're going to show methods to flex the lumbar spine. A lot of problems arise in this area of the lower back, and this exercise is called the arch and sway. First, Dr. Reichert is going to let his back arch and dip in, and then he's going to hunch his back like a cat. Very good. You can see the flexibility Dr. Reichert has in his spine. This is very important to keep the discs very supple and flexible. The next exercise we're going to do is have Dr. Reichert lay on his back, and he's going to hug one knee at a time toward his chest. This mobilizes the sacroiliac joints, stretches and releases the very, very tight buttock muscles and hamstrings, and it provides tremendous relaxation to an overstretched lumbar or lower back region. The next exercise Dr. Reichert will do will take both knees and hug them toward his chest and rock back and forth, much as if you were on a swing in a pumping action. This tends to flex the lumbar spine again and to iron out all types of kinks in the lumbar musculature. The next exercise Dr. Reichert will do will be a quarter sit-up, many times often called a crunch. Here we want the lumbar spine to remain flat against the floor, and we want just Dr. Reichert to raise his head and shoulders up off, contracting only the upper abdominal muscles. There's no danger of any injury to the lumbar spine or to lumbar discs, as with a common sit-up. The next thing that we're going to demonstrate is the lower abdominal muscles. I'm going to have Dr. Reichert raise his lower pelvic muscles up, and contracting just the lower abdominal muscles going to provide strengthening to this part of the lumbar spine as well. Now we're going to demonstrate some of the instruments that are used in sports injuries and why they develop sports injuries. The first we'll use is the tennis racket. In tennis, you can see that it is a one-sided type of exercise. The body is using only the handedness side. If the patient is right-handed, probably 75 to 80% of the shots are all with the forehand shot. This is utilizing only the muscles on one side of the spine, not on the weak side of the spine, and it creates an overdevelopment or disproportionment. The same holds true with a golf swing. Patient is right-handed. All of the shots are twisted in the same direction. Again, most of the spinal musculature and stress is placed just in one region of the spine. Same with a baseball bat. Patient swings primarily in one direction. There's a coiling and an uncoiling of the spinal musculature, always rotating in one direction. The synonyms that we use for injury should they occur would be RICE. R stands for rest, I stands for ice, C for compression, and E for elevation. Those are the four things most important should a strain or sprain occur. For Dr. John Reichert, I am Dr. Tom Pacone for this week's Health Facts.
Approximately 70 miles of Township Road are in need of some type of repair, according to a report presented to the Council at Monday night's agenda session. A road maintenance survey conducted by T&M Associates outlined a 10-year program developed to identify and coordinate township road maintenance projects on an ongoing basis. Township engineer Bill Fitzgerald and Township Administrator Jack Coughlin instituted the survey in an effort to establish a continuing program for road maintenance. Upon visual inspection of the township's 159 miles of roads, T&M identified problems using a rating system based on a Pavement Condition Index, or PCI. A road with a PCI rating that falls below 70 is then categorized by the type of repairs needed according to the program's four-level system. William Farrell, a T&M engineer, used a color-coded map of the township to illustrate each road and its corresponding repairs, which can range from minor maintenance to reconstruction. Among the roads listed for reconstruction are Riva Avenue, Tices Lane, and Old Stage Road. Drainage work, paving, and curb replacement are types of maintenance included in this category. The township expects to spend $25 million over the next 10 years, but also hopes to get state aid from the Department of Transportation and to receive contributions or compensation from developers who are responsible for increased traffic on particular roads or for road damage caused during construction. The program is broken down into two 5-year plans. Farrell noted that in order for this type of program to be successful, an ongoing inventory with current data will have to be maintained.
And there really has never been a system in this town ongoing like this. Bill Fitzgerald and Jack felt, and I agree, that it's a hard pill to swallow looking at what this report says. But some of it has already been funded, the Hardenberg Lane, New Brunswick Avenue, and some of this major work has already been bonded for. But something like this is really for the future.
And the debate over whether or not to ban the use of polystyrene foam heated up once again during the public portion of the meeting, when residents and representatives of various organizations gathered to voice their opposition to the possibility of a ban. Speaking on behalf of a plastics recycling effort, Dr. Darrell Morrow of the Center for Plastics Recycling Research at Rutgers urged the Council to consider a mixed recycling program, maintaining that a ban would be ineffective. A representative from McDonald's was also present to tout the fast food chain's recycling efforts, noting that plastics recycling is already taking place in the chain's New England region and will eventually be used for all 8,200 McDonald's nationwide. Steve Scapper informed the Council of a plastics recycling center slated for operation by year-end in the Philadelphia area, which would be able to handle the material for restaurants in this region. He noted that a ban would be detrimental to the restaurant's business. Councilman Irv Sporn, however, was not impressed by the presentation, pointing out that McDonald's was only interested in addressing the Council upon learning of a possible ban of the product. The mayor has said he will incorporate the information and comments into a recycling report, which is still being researched. And the mayor proclaimed the week of May 21st through the 28th Youth Baseball Week.
Whereas baseball and softball have long been recognized nationally as America's pastimes, and whereas the East Brunswick Baseball Managers Association and the East Brunswick Little League organization have contributed to the quality of life for thousands of youngsters of East Brunswick over many years. Whereas these two organizations have combined their energies to organize the Memorial Day weekend's Mayor's Trophy Tournament. And whereas volunteers from both organizations have joined together to assist the Department of Recreation, Parks and Community Services in its first Township Baseball Festival to benefit all children of East Brunswick. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Jackson Auger, Mayor of the Township of East Brunswick, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through May 28th, 1990 as Youth Baseball Week in East Brunswick. Be it further proclaimed that Civic Center Drive shall be renamed Youth Baseball Drive for the same period. I just want to say a couple of words before anybody goes out. I think this is important to recognize. A lot of people, when I first became mayor, said this day couldn't happen. A lot of people have said over the last year, how did it happen? How did you ever get it accomplished? Well, I did. It's really the work of these two gentlemen as leaders in their organization that have finally brought this event to pass. I think we should all applaud the leadership of both organizations, and I'm real proud of them. So now
The 1990 Daisy Spring Fair kicked off Wednesday night with a wide variety of activities for fairgoers to enjoy. The midway section offers rides, games, food, and fun. Once the sun went down, East Brunswick High School students and teachers had an opportunity to settle their differences in chocolate pudding wrestling matches. Proceeds from the fair support Camp Daisy and its outreach programs for handicapped children. The fair is located at the Middlesex County Fairgrounds and runs through Monday. Special events include Pay One Price Night Thursday night, professional wrestling Friday night, and on Saturday, an oldies rock and roll car show and an oldies concert. Sunday, it's fireworks and the Tim Gillis Band, and Monday marks the Battle of the High School Bands. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.